Thank you. Now move on to item number 2, public comments. At this time, members of the public may address the Board of Directors regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Directors, but no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for all comments unless the chairman, subject to the approval of the board, sets different time limits. Do we have any requests to speak? Okay. We now move on to item number 3, our consent calendar. And I'd like to note that from our last meeting, item number 5 from the February 13th meeting regarding the refinance budget amendment continuance, there was one item on the agenda with regard to city authority and moving between budget categories, and that was to be pushed off from that meeting and addressed at the following meeting, which would be today. However, when staff was putting the agenda together for this meeting today, it was inadvertently left off. That item, though, has been addressed during the procurement ad hoc meeting this week, and will also be addressed in the broader scope during the budget process and coming back before the board in May. So I just want to make that notation. Can we now move on to our consent calendar, items 1 through 5?
Madam Chair, I have a question about that.
Yes.
I have a question about that. So that is going to come before the board, because I had a question about that. You know, when we did the refinance, we talked about when extra money showed up that this board was going to take that money and pay off some of the bonds earlier. That was part of the discussion when we approved the refinancing. And it seems to me that, does this $15 million fall in that category of, now we have $15 million extra dollars, but we're just going to reallocate it? We're not going to take this money and put it towards paying off the bonds early? Is that what happened here?
Well, I think there would have to be a board direction with regard, perhaps Amy Potter could come up and speak to that item.
Well, when I present this item, I think I can explain and show you that it's not really an amount of freed up money per se. It was all in developing an optimal structure. So when we were talking about potentially freeing up cash flow through the restructure and then being able to use it at the board's discretion, one of the ways was to pay off debt early. That's one of your options. It was really when we were talking about in developing that full structure. So that's what we have done. This budget amendment that I will be bringing back to the board is really just, it's I would look at it as an administrative function of effectuating that restructure that we did build. It really, I wouldn't look at it as freeing up funds at this time. It's developing the structure that then will potentially give you that opportunity in the future with additional cash flow to either pay off the debt early or use it for other purposes.
Thank you. I'll look forward to that.
Okay. All right. Consent calendar, items 1 through 5.
I'd like to pull 3.
All right. Okay. Directors, any other items to be pulled?
I'll make a motion to.
Okay, we have a motion to move the balance. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We'll now move on to item number 3 from the consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I needed to abstain. Mine was a yes vote with an abstention on the minutes from the previous meeting. That were
Okay.
part of that.
All right, thank you. Duly noted. Okay. Item number 3, staff report.
This item is for an analysis that we started in February 2012 for the Tesoro extension, and it's for the traffic and revenue study for the project. And we put that traffic and revenue study on hold in August of 2012. And what we've done is we've asked Stantec for a cost estimate to re-look at the socioeconomic progress of the development in the area and take another look at the traffic and revenue estimates for the Tesoro extension, and we will be using that as we develop a financial feasibility analysis for the project.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Director Nelson.
Thank you, and not so much a question, but my concern is this. The Tesoro extension was an idea hatched back when Bill Campbell was the chair. chair it. I agreed it was a good idea at the time. I convinced Bill to pursue it. But we're involved in a lawsuit as to whether or not we're going to have permission to build such an extension. And I believe that we also have traded away our unilateral right to the state that we could build it without getting further permission. So I'm just concerned that we're doing a lot of studies on something that we don't have necessarily any permission legally to build, and it's unclear to me if we shouldn't resolve that issue first before we start spending money. I'm all for the notion of going forward with a road, but if we were to spend this money and end up losing the challenges and the lawsuits and the water quality permits aren't issued, we're just not allowed to build for now, what would happen if it took us a few years to resolve the legal issues and we'd be refreshing the refreshed numbers? I'm not sure what good they do us until we resolve the other issues, is my point. So I'm a no for now. I'm not against it, it's just the timing's bad, and I would encourage you to consider such.
Director Rudin?
I think Director Nelson brings up a good point. So Dave, are you prepared to respond to that? Why are we asking for Stantec to refresh the studies at this point when, it's true, we may be a year, 2 years, whatever off, and then will we have to come back and you'll have to ask us for more money again?
That may be the case. Usually the estimates are based on the current development in the area. And at the time when we put this on hold back in 2012, the ranch development down in southern Orange County had not opened up for sale, and now you have as many as 200 families living in that development. So what we wanted to do is get a understanding of how they're progressing, what kind of absorption they're seeing in some of their developments, and include that to refresh the study to get it up to date.
If I could also add that as part of the data that we'll get from this, it is pertinent to our current efforts through the environmental process, specifically as it relates to the cost-benefit analysis of the project. So for that purpose, it's needed now, and it's extremely important.
And we're hoping that things will go rapidly through the state with regard to our State Water Board appeal and the 2 federal permits that are still pending. Yes, Director Baker.
Madam Chair, and the reason I pulled it was because if you look at the closed session report, there are 10 lawsuits listed under closed session 10 that seem to relate to this project, and it would seem like a good idea to me to wait until at least some of those lawsuits are settled, or we have some idea of what's going to happen there, or maybe the board needs a report on and an update on those 10 lawsuits pertaining to this before we spend 5 more cents on traffic studies for something that may not be built for many, many years.
Right. I was intending to agree with you until I heard the clarification from David Lowe and from our acting CEO Mike Cramen as far as the timeliness of having that study done right now, which does make sense. Ryan?
I just wanted to add that the current cooperative agreement does allow for tolling through 2040 for the Tesoro extension.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments, directors? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. We have 1, 2, Director Nelson, Director Spitzer, and Director Baker, Director Murphy. Okay. All right, and that item passes. We now move on to item number 4. Could we have a brief staff report, please?
Well, Madam Chair, item 4 relates to a settlement agreement with regard to the resignation of the Chief Executive Officer, and the staff and agency council recommend approval of the settlement. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Okay, this item was pulled by Director Spitzer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure it's clear I'll be voting no. I'm not supporting the staff recommendation. As we're all aware, Mr. Peterson's contract has 2 provisions we can act under this circumstance. One is a no-cause provision with a 90-day severance. The other is a for-cause provision with no severance. And based upon the record and the information that's been shared with us, I believe we should be proceeding under the for-cause provision, and therefore I will not be supporting the recommendation.
Okay, other comments, questions from board members? Director Nelson?
Thank you. I just want to make sure the record's clear. Based on the information that's been presented to me, I also, I believe we should fire Neil Peterson, frankly. And I believe that, I don't agree with the press release, and I don't agree with the terms of the agreement.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Director Baker?
And it seems like some of the points made in the statement should have, we should have some more latitude to speak about exactly what went on. I agreed with that discussion that was made at the San Joaquin Hills. We should have been able to, we should be able to talk about this some more than we're being held to with the agreement.
Okay. Directors, any more questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Wait a minute, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Director
I was
Reardon.
I was trying to get in there. Maybe you or our vice chair could explain the rationale behind this statement and why, that we are here as a board. Our job is to protect the agency, this agency, and this does not, it wasn't just thrown together lightly. So maybe we could have a little bit more elaboration on that.
Okay. To get to this settlement agreement, it was an iterative process, and we've worked with our attorneys and worked with Mr. Peterson's attorney in coming up with an agreement that really does protect all parties concerned. It's in the best interest of the agency, and it allows us to move forward. And this was a highly negotiated document, and that's presented to us today for consideration and for approval. But this is not something that was just thrown together and lightly done. We had a lot of input and a lot of iterations to get to this point today.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on this. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Director Baker, Director Nelson, Director Spitzer. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get who made the motion and second.
Director Puckett made the motion, and Director Olivato was the second.
Thank you.
Okay, and that item passes. Okay. We now move on to board business, item number 6, all electronic tolling conversion, civil construction contract.
Madam Chair, I have the same presentation that I gave at the San Joaquin Board. I'm happy to go through it.
I'll move the item. Madam Chair, I'll move the item.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that item passes. We now move on to Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Gallagher will present our traffic and revenue report.
Good morning again. Little Eastern transactions. The red bar is bigger than the blue bar and above the green line, and that's good news. The one I like to look at is on the next page. A nice upward trend in growth of transactions. We see that in the revenue numbers that you'll see on the next page. I've looked at the March information, and we're right about in the same place that we were in February in terms of percent growth over last year. As we're continuing to move this bar upward, the revenue is in a nice place. It is above the budgeted forecast. Let's say a word about account signups for our all electronic tolling conversion. We get about 3,200 background, I'll call them background signups per month under Fast Track in days past. Last month between Fast Track and Express accounts, there were almost 7,400. That's good. And our March information is tracking right about in that same place. So without even having a hard date for the conversion, we're getting people to sign up. You notice the one-time toll number is about the same. I think that's good, and because we want people to sign up for accounts, and we're going in a good direction there. The fact that it isn't very big is bigger than last month, I think, is a good thing. We hope to be able to start announcing dates for the hard conversion relatively soon, and we would expect the sign-up numbers to really jump up when we get to that point. I think that's basically there is a graphic of the same information that you see in the table, and I think that all these things state the same thing. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yes, sir.
Director Baker.
I have one question. Could you go back one slide for me? Where you talk about fast track signups, do you also track, do people leave fast track? Do people unsign up from fast track?
Yeah, the historical, we get about, let's go back before December, back in November, February, and back in history, 2-3 years. We typically get 3,000, 3,200 signups per month. We get about 2,000 account closures per month, and that's basically the history. And the reason people close accounts is essentially that they leave the area. You know, people retire, they change jobs, different various things, but accounts grow, you know, month by month by month. What I want to point out is that we're getting people to, our marketing effort is being effective to get people to sign up for express accounts and fast track accounts. And of course, the object is to hold on to them because it does cost us money to acquire them. I trust that's an answer. Yeah, people do leave. Sure.
Okay. Well, would you mind, you know, at some point, maybe June here, we could have a total, like a more than last year or something like that, some slide for that?
Talking about a net.
Net.
Oh, sure, yeah. Now that we've got some data on these accounts and their activities and things like that, we want to start diving into that too, such that we actually hold on to a great percentage of the accounts and they actually use the toll roads. But now that we've got some information, we got some pattern, in a couple of months we'll be able to report that. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions or comments? I think it's great that revenues are up 7.5% from the prior year in February, and transactions are up 2.8%. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful trend.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this item?
A move.
Okay. And we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. Okay. And let's see, we now move on to, oh, that's right, we don't have a, yeah, it's receive and file, excuse me, it's been a long morning. Okay, we'll move on to directors' reports. Directors, any reports? First of all, on behalf of the Foothill Eastern Board, I think we should all wish Christina Shea a very happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
29 and going down. Great. Okay. And then also congratulations to, we had the South Orange County Economic Coalition, South Orange County's Got Talent event last night. And Jeff Bott took first place with his comedic performance, which was absolutely outstanding. And Scott Schoeffel was also performing in a group and did very well as well. So anyway, that,
Madam Chair, if
yes.
Jeff Bott's not here, did he sign up with Hollywood already or what?
I don't know where he is this morning. Okay. He's working. Okay. And we do not have a need for a closed session. Right, we will now adjourn.